Hey guys, so today's going to be a great topic. I'm so glad you're here. So, have you ever wondered how do you make sure that you always have more money than you'll ever need? If that's ever crossed your mind, you are in for a treat today. That's what we're going to talk about. Welcome to my channel, Life in Abundance, where women come and we're going to learn how to make sure we live our life in abundance. So, today we're going to talk about what are the things we can do to make sure that we have more money than we'll ever need. And that's what I was thinking about today because I was on a podcast earlier today. And the interviewer asked me a really, really good question. And that was what she had said is she had had several businesses and she was growing her current business. And she said, Kathy, I've never gotten into investing. I've just been going from business to business and I've been making money. And I've realized recently that I can make all the money in the world, but I still have to keep making money because I never put anything away, anything on the side. Now, that gives me two things to talk about. One, that sometimes when we talk about putting things on the side, we're talking, a lot of people are considering savings. And in the past, when inflation was 2 and 3%, and we could put money in the bank and our savings were making 2 and 3%, then we were making just as much as inflation. So we weren't losing any real purchasing power. But that is not the case anymore, is it? If inflation actually is higher, as we've experienced over the last few years, as in the US, as much as 8, 9, 10%, and in other countries around the world, even into the double digits of inflation for the year, then 2 or 3% in a savings account is not going to be enough, right? As a matter of fact, that means that even if we were making 2 or 3% with our savings, if the inflation is 10%, we're actually losing 8%. We're losing that difference in purchasing power. And that's what got me thinking, what can we do to make sure whatever money we have saved or whatever money we're investing, that the money that we're investing makes money for us? And how do we make sure that therefore, when we do that, we won't ever run out of money? The way to do that is making sure our money is growing more than inflation. How do you do that? How do we do that with all the investments that you could possibly get into? How do you make sure you're in the right one that is going to be growing more than inflation? That's the one you want. Because, for example, if you're in the US and you invest in the US stock market, the broad stock market has grown about 10 to 12% a year on average. So some up years, some down years, more up years than not, because the average in the last decade has been about 12% a year in the last decade if you were investing. Now, of course, if you were investing in technology stocks like our Magnificent Seven stocks, is what they're talking about, like Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix, Tesla, and now Nvidia, just cutting edge technology stocks. They've been growing much more than the 12%. Some of them have been growing 20% or 30%. Not throughout the decade, but at least over the past 3 or 4 years, right? And so that would definitely beat inflation if we had invested in these technology stocks before they became really, really hot. That means our money would have been growing as the companies grew, right? That makes sense. But how did you know before they started growing? You may not have. And that is quite the rub, because are you going to research thousands and thousands of stocks in order to find those few that you think are going to grow before they started growing or before they had the huge run? Because that's what you would need to do, right? You would need to put your money in something that grows faster than inflation. Technology stocks have been doing that over the past few years. I don't know, Amazon has been around since the late 80s, sorry, late 90s, because I think it's like 30 years old. So you probably weren't investing for 30 years. The big growth has occurred in the last decade, last 10 years. So how do you do that? How do you find that thing that's growing when it's growing? So you're not investing in it, while it's like Amazon was like $12, $10, $8, down to $4 and all that kind of stuff until it's got into the hundreds, right? Well, until it really started taking off, especially over the last decade. How do you find that investment that grows really fast and you're there at the right time? So it's not a secret. It's kind of information that's being let out now. And if you've been following my channel, you probably know what it is. It's Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, not all crypto. Some of the cryptos are good, but some of them are so you just can't get into blanket all sorts of crypto. Some of them are good. We can talk about those later, but especially Bitcoin. I can tell you Bitcoin over more than a decade, or at least over the past decade, Bitcoin's been growing at 50% a year on average. So up years, yep, even the down years, average that out, 50% a year on average growth over more than a decade now. Investing even a little bit in something growing that fast is what will preserve purchasing power, or what potentially would preserve purchasing power. I have to say potentially because we don't know for sure the future. I can give you reasons why I think it's going to continue growing. But for the sake of what I'm talking about today, if it continues growing another 50% a year, say we're even going to be conservative and over the next decade it's only going to grow 35% a year on average. If inflation is 10% a year, you're actually gaining the difference between 10 to 35. So you're gaining 25% a year growth on average. So you're actually beating inflation. Whatever money that you would have put in Bitcoin, as Bitcoin grows, it grows faster than inflation. And so even if inflation goes up a little bit, your money is still growing faster, and then you earn the difference. And that's how you make sure that your money keeps growing faster than inflation. And if it does, you won't run out of money, because conversely, if you end up investing in things that don't grow as fast as inflation, inflation will start eating away at your purchasing power. And that's why a lot of people who are investing in what we would call traditional assets, your bonds, your stocks, and real estate, that if those things are not keeping up with inflation, then what it feels like is you spend your entire life working and saving and trying to invest in something that's not growing fast enough. And you would think you would need this much money when you retire, but that much money only now buys half as much as you thought it would, because inflation is now higher than what you thought. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why even if you are invested in other things, looking at Bitcoin, studying it, figuring out why it's growing so fast, how to start investing in it safely, really would boost your growth and protect your purchasing power, so that when you get to like a long-term goal, something far away, that would have grown, that overcomes inflation. And that's how you make sure you never run out of money. So hopefully this has been helpful to you, and it's given you a new perspective on the differences with investing. If you like this and you would like to get a little bit more details in how to compare the investments you have, stocks, gold, bonds, real estate, Bitcoin, we've got an absolutely free webinar for you. The link is below if you're interested, and I will see you in the next video.